Welcome into the Hot Read Podcast live here on Friday, June the 13th. Ooh,
Friday the 13th.
I didn't even realize it was it. I heard that yesterday and I forgot about it. And, now I've remembered again. Maybe that's why today has been such a day, but it's okay. We can put our worries at the door because it is a Hot Read Happy Hour Friday. I am your host, JT Ruhnke, writer and reporter here at the 440 Sports Podcast Network. You can follow me on all of your socials at JT_Ruhnke. Joined once again here on the Hot Read Podcast to recap everything Titans minicamp related is none other than my co-host, Stoney Keeley, editor-in-chief of the Sobros Network, one half of Football and Other F Words, and co-writer over at Stacking the Inbox. Stoney, how are you, my friend? And can I just say it's been such a week for Titans content, both the content on the field and the content off the field. So much has happened this week. So much of it because of you and I here on the Hot Read Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm kind of, it's odd to see that you're the one that's stressed out and running hot today, because that's usually my role. I usually have too much on my plate. And today I'm just, I'm just kind of getting through, and this has been my on-call week at the dreaded shitty day job. So now that the week is over, I don't have to answer phones anymore. I'm in a great mood. I'm feeling fantastic. I'm ready to talk about the Titans, and we got a little Gen Friday action going on too.
I love it. We get to wave at the haters and talk Titans for the rest of this hour and change. Good to see all of you guys joining us as well. Eddie, Jacob, Coach Wills, Paul, in the chat here. Good to see you all. We'll get to your comments and so much more here in a second. If you want to join the conversation, if you're over on Twitter or Facebook and want to join the fine, lovely people that are in the comment section, do us a favor and head on over to the 440 Sports YouTube channel, where you can join all of them, where Jacob Sane says, Stoney, give us a cat update. I'm assuming the cat as well. I saw you two hanging out earlier today on the Twitterverse.
Yeah, she has no boundaries. She just walks up and sits on my face as I'm lying in bed. We've integrated her with Bucky, and they're doing okay. Bucky's 5 years old. He's kind of over all the kitten stuff, and she just won't leave him alone. So like he's a 17-pound cat. So he just reaches up with his paw and just pushes her down. So I'm like, you got to learn boundaries, Pepper. But other than that, like, to even get to this point with her has been awesome, because it was a pretty stressful weekend, and we seem to have gotten her back to a pretty decent spot health-wise. So all's well.
And that is awesome to hear. Hey, you know what else is awesome? Our presenting sponsor, ML Rose Craft Beer and Burgers, locations all across the greater Nashville area. Your one-stop shop for all of your beer, food, and hang needs. More on them later. Also sponsored by Sinkers Beverages. More on them later as well. All right, we can get into everything that happened at Titans mandatory minicamp this week. Coach Will says, I just want to know what level of Trader Joe's are we going to be at today. Coach Will says, I just walked down the produce aisle. We'll let you know in advance. I would say that, I don't know, Tuesday definitely was a day where I may have also indulged in a little bit of Trader Joe's-ness. I tried my hardest not to, get too carried away. I feel like the rest of the week, though, with Cam Ward and this Titans defense, there are things about Cam Ward this week that can get you to that level and will hype you up. As for the play on the field, I would say it was much more up and down than it was that first day. To be honest with you, if I had to give a victor to one of the sides, I would definitely say that the defense probably won both Wednesday and Thursday's practice. Wednesday was a 2-minute and third down drill, once again, just like we saw during voluntary OTAs. And then Wednesday was that. And then Thursday was red zone day. And I would say for the better part of both days, the defense was getting after them. And Eddie says, sounds like Thursday was a Whole Foods day. maybe we're not at Trader Joe's level. Maybe we're at I would say Wednesday was definitely like a Piggly Wiggly type of day.
Piggly Wiggly day. All right. Yeah.
And so not to say that it was bad, right? I think the up and downness of Cam Ward's last 2 days, not having a spectacular, perfect like report card after an interception from Cody Barton on Tuesday, like I think is better than having him go perfect like he did. I think we really got the full extension of what Brian Callahan was talking about, right? Like the experimenting of seeing what works for him, what doesn't, the things he can get away with, the things he probably can't get away with. And once again, this is all, and we'll get to what Cam Ward said, like this is all fake football, as Cam Ward eloquently put it on Thursday after practice. But, you know, I do think that we talked about Tuesday, how it was hard for the defense to really put up a fight. I think they came back strong on Wednesday and Thursday and gave Cam Ward and all the other quarterbacks, for that matter, a really hard time.
How much of that can you talk about, JT? Because I'm curious, like what aspect of it you thought particularly jammed up the Titans offense a bit? Like, was it a promising pass rush that maybe we weren't expecting? Was it coverage? I'm curious how much of that you can talk about and your general takeaways on what exactly it was about the way the defense played that seemed to get to Cam Ward a little more than it did on Tuesday.
I think the difference was on those days, the 2-minute drill, the third down, the red zone. What do they all have in common? It's the unique blitz packages that Denard Wilson was able to scheme up, right? And not to say like it was all defense. Like there were still times where Denard was very angry on the sidelines because they did not stop this offense. But like, yeah, I think when you talk about what really had the Titans offense struggling on those days, and it's hard once again without pads, but
sure.
I mean, on Wednesday specifically, I can remember at least like 3 or 4 batted balls at the line because the defensive front just like gets after the offensive line, kind of has their way with them. And once again, it's hard with no pads, right? It is really hard. And so like, that's a grain of salt. Once again, like we talked about with the corners and the wide receivers on Tuesday, like it's hard for them to do. I think it's just as hard for the offensive line to like do what they're supposed to when we don't have pads on and when we're not going full speed. Like you're not trying to hurt the other guy when the defensive line, like all they know is hurt, you know, like those type of things. So I would say that was a big factor in it. I think certainly on Thursday's practice, Cam looked the most uncomfortable he has looked in the pocket that we've seen so far. Like they were sending a lot at him. He had to do a lot on those red zone drills to get outside of the pocket and try to make plays with his legs, kind of extend the play, which ended up costing him with 2 interceptions on that day. And I know one of them he says wasn't real, but you know, it was a pretty bad, like it was probably the worst pass I've seen from Cam Ward yet already. But and then the other one, once again, just trying to fit it when he extends the play and trying to fit it into too tight of a hole. And Jamari Harris with the UDFA, or not Jamari Harris, the Davion Ross comes up with the interception there. So it all mixes in, and I think it all does count in some form or fashion, but it definitely was the extensive blitzes that these quarterbacks were seeing that really got to him. Now, does that mean that this pass rush is new and improved and Draymond Jones is going to factor in a lot better than Harold Landry did, or this is going to work a lot better? Not necessarily. I think that is yet to be seen. Once again, like, I think over the last 2 off seasons, we were fooled a bunch by like, they looked good without pads on, or, you know, Arden Key had 8 sacks in a day, you know, like I still want to reserve the final thoughts on that until we get the pads on. So
how did this week impact your perception of where Cam Ward is at in the process?
I would say, I don't know if I have like a number or like where I want to say he is. I would say that through the up and down, I was still very much impressed throughout the entire week. And maybe it's not because he was making the wow throws, but it's more so what impressed me, the confidence that the kid has every single play, no matter what happens, the calm, cool, collective type of nature that he comes back to the huddle with, I think is what makes him so impressive, that it's kind of just like one play is in one ear out the other every time, starting clean every single play. Like, this is a guy who I think, still has a lot to work on. There were a lot of, as he even said, like, I shouldn't have thrown that ball over shoulder. I should have sidearmed it, and maybe he would have had more success. And that's something he knows that he can fix right away afterwards, those types of things. Right. I do think that we're in a better place with Cam right now, and we'll continue to be in a better place because I think he just has the right makeup, between the ears. We have a bunch of clips here from both Cam kind of exuding that confidence, as well as Cody Barton, JC Latham, Gunnar Helm, JC Latham and Gunnar Helm in particular, about like what makes him so unique. And so, we've seen so much rave reviews from Cam inside the huddle in the offense. Like, what exactly about that made him so great to work with in the huddle? And then Cody Barton as well, the guy who had 2 interceptions off of him. We'll talk to him here in a second. But yeah, I like, none of the things he did bad this week are making me concerned. I still am very impressed with the confidence and where he is, and I think he's in a good spot.
So on the flip side of that, then, to hear good defensive performances as the week went on, what has that done for your feeling about this Titans defense maybe taking the next step up in play?
I would say that I have come away. I know when we were doing the free agency and we were very concerned with this linebacker position, specifically the signing of Cody Barton.
Yeah.
I've quietly come around as a Cody Barton truther. Like, I think this guy is going to be just fine for what they need. I think he has a lot better play recognition than a Kenneth Murray did at this point last year. I think he's a lot more of a commander and leader on the defense than Kenneth Murray was. Obviously, he has that enthusiasm and that personality that seems to gel really well with this new look Titans team and what they want to do with their defense and this team as a whole. I've been really impressed with him. And then it's hard. Like, I think that I'm coming around on the idea that this defense could be just as good as it was in the beginning stages of last year, if not better. I think the pieces that they have in place as of right now kind of translate to better play on the field immediately, even if some of those guys haven't even really had a snap yet, right? Like, I think that the way that they are going about this offseason gives me confidence that we're not going to see like a Femi Oladejo or a Marcus Harris or a Cedric Gray or James Williams kind of look like a lost puppy out there once we finally get into real games. It feels like these guys are all bought in on the defensive side of the ball, and they're going to be able to make an impact from day one.
Man, I noticed your minicamp report yesterday had a note about Marcus Harris making a pretty good play from the outside. That's some interesting. That's an interesting nugget there, because I think we kind of disqualified him automatically from the measurables from playing outside, but it sounds like he's getting a little bit of run out there.
Yeah, he is. And I know I put out a tweet maybe on Wednesday that said, Titans fans, let me know who you guys really want to focus on for Thursday, as it's our final time before we enter truly. This is the last day before we get to the darkness. It is the next 5 weeks there are no football practices taking place until we get to training camp. And so we're going to enter a period of darkness. So I wanted people to, who do you guys were most interested in hearing from or about how they looked? And so I took a lot of those suggestions and wrote down some notes. We'll get to especially the 2 Harrises, Marcus and Jamari, and what's going on with the kicking and punting return, as well as the kicker and all those things towards the end of the show. But yeah, I have some thoughts about Marcus Harris. Let's before we move on from Cam Ward here, let's talk about, first of all, let's hear from his teammates, JC Latham and Gunnar Helm, about what specifically makes Cam Ward, I don't want to say special, but stand out as a rookie in the huddle so far. Here's what JC and Gunnar Helm both had to say, with Cam, or with JC saying a little anecdote about Cam that I think we've come to see over the last 2 days is just absolutely crazy.
I mean, I think he holds himself to a leadership accountability. He'll admit when he's wrong, and he'll take accountability, even if, it's not 100% on him. But I think one thing that really speaks out about Cam, I don't know if you guys saw it, but, Jeff likes to talk a lot of mess out there. And, Cam is all for it, and he's matching it. And then Jeff must have got a little close to him, and Cam headbutted Jeff. So it's like, as a quarterback, especially a rookie who, hasn't even played his first snap to, see Jeff as, top dog of the team, he's going right at him. He's not backing down. He's not like, oh, I'm just some quarterback. He's going right at him, the head of the snake. So, that's that quarterback he is. So, it's a pleasure playing with him.
It speaks on, his ability, just really his character and his maturity. Being in an NFL huddle with some guys that have been here for a long time, some NFL vets, small pros, and having that composure to really break it down for everyone, make sure everybody knows what they're doing, make sure everybody knows the snap count, so we're all on the same page, so we can all make our calls and get on the same page. And it's been great. But like I said, just getting in with Cam, in the morning time before we actually get out on the field, seeing how he wants the timing, where he wants us to be, where he's going to place the ball on certain plays, has helped our chemistry immensely.
There's a couple things in those clips. First, with Gunnar Helm, there's a idea in the back of my mind that Cam's competitiveness and confidence maybe is more of the reason as to why he's found success every stop he's gone to than maybe his intangibles. The way I would put the confidence and why it's been so impressive, it's kind of intoxicating to watch sometimes, both in from the clips we see, from what we hear from his teammates. JC is saying that Cam is not afraid when they're in the scrum to just headbutt one of the biggest stars and one of the biggest human beings on this team in Jeffrey Simmons as a rookie, a guy who's been here for so long in Jeffrey Simmons. That crazy competitiveness and almost psychotic nature to a quarterback is something that I think is fresh and is a good step in the right direction for what this team needs right now. There are also things I would say about Cam's game that, specifically watching him on Thursday, reminded me a lot. I know there have been many different comps for Cam, especially during draft season, but there were so many Aaron Rodgers-esque little things that I saw during minicamp, especially on Thursday, that I thought were really, really fun to watch. The way he runs play action, the little ball tuck looking the other way, trying to fake. I thought I was watching Aaron Rodgers at some points there with what he was doing. And it's clear that that is kind of the direction that I think he wants to take his game and model his game after. Maybe not so much the Joe Burrow of the world or the, those other guys, but the Aaron Rodgers type player that he's been comped to at sometimes. That's the kind of things that I was looking at as we were winding down practice on Thursday. And I was like, that's a really fun nugget to watch, with Cam. And so that confidence that he has in the way he's playing right now, that is a little Rodgers-esque, is really fun to see.
It's interesting you say that too, because everybody always brings up Mahomes when they're talking about the arm angle and off-platform stuff. But you remember the discussion on Aaron Rodgers early on in his career too was got this funky release. Yep. Nobody really knows. It's not the altered arm angle or anything like that, but the release, the footwork, something about it's just unorthodox, but it works for Aaron Rodgers. So we just let him do it. Why tinker with it when you get those kind of results? And I think we've heard Brian Callahan say similar things throughout the offseason. It's we don't want to just reinvent the wheel here. If it works for him, we want to work with it. And so to see that parallel coming out in practice, I think it's pretty interesting. I think that's a good observation, JT.
Yeah, and Eddie says, TJ not helping the Trader Joe's talk with the Rodgers comp. Is it going to work? No, it's just these and I'm not saying the arm or the playmaking of it's just the little tiny things that I think he's doing with his game right now that help complement what Cam is going to be really interesting to watch throughout training camp. Here's on the opposite side of the ball here, Cody Barton, who picked him off twice and was very ecstatic about it. I forget who asked this question. I think it was one of the news station people. But they offered up their question as like, you got your hand on a couple balls, and Cody made sure to say, no, I didn't just get my hand on a couple of balls. I had 2 picks this week. And his thoughts on Cam Ward so far in the offseason program.
Yeah. Cam's awesome. What do you think about him? Cam's awesome. Great player, and as a rookie to come in and, lead and command the way he has and take control of this offense, it's impressive to see. Just, you guys all seen his ability. He can make every throw. But, the physical ability is, very impressive. But just the maturity and the emotional maturity and so all that with it, is pretty special.
The emotional maturity, I think, is an interesting one. The maturity to, it almost can translate into swagger because, it's hard to like define that, right? But like, it's the way he conducts himself. And we have one clip here, which I think encapsulates all of that to round out the Cam Ward conversation, which, by the way, did not expect this morning to wake up and see the NFL actual Twitter and Instagram account post my video, which I think is funny. I was just like, oh, cool. Which is funny because I was like in the back of this entire Cam scrum and they pick mine of all, which I think is very funny. But Cam Ward and the way he just talks about it being a game, but also bringing that mature edge to it as well, I think is really what makes him special. And as we continue to like look at these things, the going back and like through our draft conversations of like between Shedeur and Cam, it's like, if we knew these things about Cam, would we have just said from the beginning, this guy from a mental makeup is just leagues ahead of everyone else? I think it's been a different conversation, but here's Cam on the smack talk this entire week, why he's okay with it. And, we're going to use one of the Hot Read happy hour F-bombs here, courtesy of Cam Ward. Here's what he had to say about the week.
I'm always locked in. Trash talk, it'll never mean nothing to me. It won't get to me some type of way. I'm just somebody who likes doing it. And so what's the point of playing something that you love? You can't have fun with it. So, that's where it comes from. But, I love the game. And so any chance I get, to let somebody know that they can't fuck with me, it really doesn't matter.
It's a bar.
Love it.
It's a bar. It is a bar. I don't think there's any other way I can say it. But, yeah. Super impressive stuff this entire week. And we can get into some of the wide receivers. If you guys have questions about wide receivers, defensive side of the ball, specific guys that you want to hear about from the week, please let us know in the comment section. Coach Wills here says, I think we downplay the overall performance of it because it wasn't pretty, but the defense actually is better than we discussed. Being second in yards is not a mistake. I think at times, certainly. You can see where the train kind of went off the tracks because of injuries last year, but that group, especially with Quandre Diggs in the mix, with Jack Gibbons in the mix, like they were a strong run defense group, and you saw those guys kind of go by the wayside, and you see it kind of just all unfurl. That I think that's what they're trying to avoid this year with this young depth, right? Guys who are dependable, but also kind of developing them all at the same time, which I don't think, like last year, we talk about it being kind of a mismatch of bits and pieces, the way they approach their offseason, right?
Yeah.
I think it's harder for them to gel than this kind of group. And I think it has to do with a lot of the young guys that are now in the room versus guys who have been here for, even the back end guys who have been here for 3 to 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, and I think to that point, JT, they also, not just the injuries, but they also traded away Ernest Jones IV, who was actually playing, I think, pretty good football, at least as a run defender, playing pretty well when they traded him. So you see those pieces kind of fall by the wayside, whether it's injury, whether it's being traded, and eventually, it takes its toll. And I still look at some of the game plans that the Titans had on defense against some of the more mobile quarterbacks. Like, that's got to change. That's got to get better. But as far as like what we're seeing this week, I think it is encouraging. I had kind of thought the same thing, is like, it feels like a new foundation instead of just a patchwork of free agents to try and make this thing work. And I think the quicker that this unit can gel as a unit, I think the more beneficial it is for this team. And man, I don't know, just getting guys with a focal point on health and staying healthy, like Xavier Woods rarely missed a game. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but he's a guy that is a stable force at the safety position. That is going to help things too. So to Coach Will's point, like there was a good foundation to build on in 2024 before, like you said, that moment where things, you kind of notice things are going off the rails here and they never really got back on track. But there was a foundation schematically and with guys like Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat and Jarvis Brownlee Jr. and Roger McCreary, this core, this unit that they have, those guys are coming back, and you're adding a better culture around them. You're adding another year of experience in game planning around them, and you're adding some talent around them too. Theoretically, yeah, let's take that next step.
And Eddie says, respect the quarterback's legs is the biggest lesson to learn.
It was rough.
It was very rough. Ken is saying, I think Cody Barton is what Vrabel wished Jack Gibbons was, which I think is a funny and yet fair comment there.
That's good.
And then Coach Will saying, compare your thoughts to Will last year at this point versus maybe where Cam is. What's the difference? I would say the difference is this year at this point, we are playing quarterback instead of learning to play quarterback. I think that's the difference. Cam Ward is just out there playing quarterback. The same kind of idea that we continue to bring up on the show, right? Last year, you were trying to make Will Levis learn how to be a quarterback and kind of fix things that he needed to fix with his technique and whatnot, versus you're just kind of letting Cam play quarterback. You're not really trying to fix things because those are the things that make him great. Like we've said all along, Coach Callahan going even back to the combine saying those type of things. And so I think you're just letting him play quarterback versus trying to teach him how to play quarterback. And I think that's the major difference. And once again, I think that's why we are at this point where we are seeing a lot more quarterback play and good quarterback play than some days where you just, I remember last season in the off season, just like you kind of went through the entire day with maybe like 5 or 6 balls completed on the whole day. And you were like, what was the point? Like, what did we see out of this? Shrike saying I'm heading to Trader Joe's after that bar. But I do think that's where I would say the difference is so far this year.
It is. There's a part of me that does kind of feel like some of this is unfair to Will Levis too, by the way, because we keep comparing Cam Ward to Will Levis because what we're experiencing with Cam Ward feels like a night and day contrast to what we felt with Will Levis. But I don't think this is just limited to Will Levis. I think it's been a long time since Titans fans have heard a quarterback speak with the confidence that he has, understanding that he means it, he believes it. This isn't some sort of like rah team building phony bullshit. This you hear Cam and you think like this is who he is. And because I was thinking about this earlier, and it just feels like such a stark contrast from what Will Levis was a year ago, but it's really not fair to him because I think there was a line of guys before him where even with Tannehill, it wasn't like, oh, wow, this guy's just completely captivating. It was more, this guy's a veteran that can stabilize the position and make some plays. You go back to Marcus. Marcus was not Cam Ward, this assassin's mentality. He didn't have that. Before him, Zach Mettenberger, Jake Locker, Charlie Whitehurst, all these guys that they've tried along the way, Malik Willis too. Like, it's been so long since Titans fans have heard a quarterback confidently speak like this, if they ever have. I mean, I don't know. I was in junior high and high school when Steve McNair was playing. I don't exactly remember his media scrums and how he talked in the press conferences, but it's been such a long time that we've heard this that it does almost kind of feel like there is this sort of, I don't know, like added edge to it where it is like, oh my God, this is, man, Will Levis sucked so bad. This is so awesome. And it's really not fair to Will Levis because it's just a different kind of quarterback. And it's refreshing. And I think that's where a lot of the hope and optimism is born out of with Cam Ward.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Team Ramrod said each name you list hit like a gun. Yeah,
Vince
Coach
Young
Will
too.
saying
Coach Wills
Vince
brings
was never
up.
really comfortable being the guy. Kenneth saying there is an entire generation of Titans fans without the promise of a true franchise quarterback. Well,
Yeah,
we'll see if it ends up translating to results on the field, but I think there is that confidence is definitely unique. We'll get to some of the wide receivers and round out how that position has gone. We'll take a look back at the wide receiver position race. Let's see who maybe made strides to get a spot versus guys who maybe have fallen, as well as it looks like some O-line talk, as well as your guys's the request from you guys, which will end out the show. But before we do that, I have to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, ML Rose Craft Beer and Burgers, locations all across the greater Nashville area: Capitol View, Franklin, Gallatin, Melrose 8th Avenue, Mount Juliet, Sylvan Park, and a new location coming soon to Inglewood near East Nashville. ML Rose simply has the best selection of beer and burgers anywhere in Nashville. Over 25 beers on tap, craft burgers that are unbeatable. It's perfect whether you're going out to watch the NBA Finals, watching Stanley Cup Finals, watching baseball, hanging out with your friends, going for a trivia night, date spot before a Nashville SC game. All of these different reasons why ML Rose is the best spot to do all those things, from all of their appetizers like the fried pickles and peppers, Nashville hot cheese curds, all the way through all of their craft burgers and sandwiches. There's sure to be something that fits your needs and your likings. They're also rolling out, I think I finally got a number. I think it's 14 new menu items or offerings. It's going to be exciting summer. It's the summer of ML Rose. Hopefully one of those is the Borgonzi burger. We're still holding out hope, but we appreciate ML Rose being our presenting sponsor. Maybe going to get some ML Rose tonight. I don't know. I haven't decided for dinner. It might be an ML Rose type of night. So we appreciate them sponsoring the show. Sinkers Beverages as well, a 4-time Best of Nashville Liquor Store of the Year for good reason. They have the best selection of beer, wine, and spirits in the city. When you go over there and you shop with Sinkers, got to sign up for their in-crowd to receive special benefits, allocations, and tastings that you can only know about when you sign up for the in crowd. If you can't make it over there, no worries. They have you covered. Simply search Sinkers on Uber Eats and they deliver the booze to you. They drive so you can drink responsibly on this Hot Read Happy Hour Friday. Thank you to them for sponsoring the show as well. Okay. Let's see. We have Eddie here in the comments who will start with the wide receiver talk. Eddie saying, did Bryce Oliver retake that wide receiver 7 spot? Or rather wide receiver 6 spot? I certainly had, we haven't heard his name a lot. And there was a question asked to Brian Callahan. Obviously, a lot of the reason why Bryce Oliver got a lot of the hype he did last year was because of the praise he received from head coach Brian Callahan. And so
sure,
he was asked once again, what have you seen from Bryce Oliver? And Brian Callahan said he's done everything that he's wanted from Bryce. Obviously, by nature, the targets and the opportunities haven't been there for him like they have with the other receivers, but he felt like, once again, with some of these other players as well, when the pads come on, that's where he really shines, and that's where it counts, especially on special teams. So it's more of a wait and see for him. However, he did have maybe the catch of the entire minicamp against Jarvis Brownlee Jr. and Amani Hooker.
Ooh.
Deep ball connected with him as he was wearing Calvin Ridley's jersey, because a lot of the players decided to swap jerseys for the last day, to the groans of everybody trying to figure out, wait, who was that? Wait, why is Tyjae Spears now white and 6'7" or 6'5", and he was Josh Wiley wearing his jersey? Like those types of things. It was very funny. But yeah, just made a play, and Tyke Tolbert, as he was coming off the field after practice and the media was waiting to talk to guys, Tyke Tolbert said, I heard that question about Bryce. You saw what he can do with the opportunities today. So certainly seems like there's high praise for Bryce Oliver in that room. Once again, I think the Bryce Oliver agenda lives. Not to say that the Restrepo agenda does not. You Xavier Restrepo fans in the chat, but he had a good send off to the end of the offseason program, and I think as it stands right now, if I'm once again just where I am right now, I think there are 5 locks, being the 3 vets and the 2 rookies. And then for that 6th spot, I would still give it to Bryce Oliver just because I think he brings more versatility to play the X and Z role. And also as a gunner on special teams right now, I think that's bringing more production than what Xavier Restrepo is bringing. But we'll talk about Xavier Restrepo here in a second and how he is carving a path to make this team. But outside of them, Traylon Burks, Brian Callahan said that he is around 80% and was hopeful to be a full go by training camp. What can he do specifically? Like there were no, it's really funny because outside of individual drills where he would be the last one to go, I really did not notice him whatsoever out there, which probably not the greatest thing, but once again, he is coming back from that injury. So maybe we'll reserve the right to talk about that until training camp. But other than that, Alec Ayumanor, Chimere Dike, Van Jefferson, those guys really showed up and I think are currently building a solid wide receiver 3 to 5 group that is going to look miles better than what the 3 through 5 group looked like last year.
Yeah, and I think I would point out as well, if you're getting down to the wide receiver 6 spot and you have all of these options that you're kind of weighing the pros and cons of keeping, that's a good position for the Titans to be in. That signals depth. To your point, what you just said, I feel like the depth is much better this year than it was last year, and I think it's a good problem to have when you get to a point where you're cutting good players.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Team Ramrod said, JT, we need you to be the O-line reporter savior the people deserve. Let everyone else fight over the same quarterback clips. I need every Jackson Slater and Brendan Crenshaw Dixon rep. Listen, I wanted to do as much coverage on the offensive lineman as I possibly could. It's just the fact that the Titans media gave us stretch period and then individual drills to film. We did not get to see them. We were not allowed to film reps against Bertha and Olga. We were not allowed to rep anything that was like of value. So it's like, it's hard at this time. Maybe hopefully we'll get some better opportunities to see them once training camp comes around. But that's why we did not get too many clips. I will say, I don't know this for a fact, but just like kind of the vibes I'm getting from Slater, Crenshaw, Dixon, and Bill Callahan, it feels like they are in the same spot that a lot of the guys were last year in terms of fighting to get ahead of that Bill Callahan curve. I think that's where it's not a bad thing, but that's where they are right now. I think Jackson Slater is going to be fine, but we haven't seen a lot of him. He's been playing primarily inside, Brendan Crenshaw Dixon on the outside. So I think there is some versatility there, but we have not seen much of them and probably won't be able to really get into the O-line talk. As Bill Callahan said, we'll have to wait and see until the pads come on. I do think it is funny, though, that Bill Callahan, one note on the offensive line here, Bill Callahan was asked about what he's thought of Dan Moore so far in this offseason. And decided to, instead of talk about Dan Moore, go on this diatribe about how the offseason program and schedule is probably going to change in the near future. Now, if you're putting your tinfoil hat on, is that just because there's really nothing to talk about? Like he said, we'll have to wait and see. Or is it conspiracy? Bill Callahan doesn't like Dan Moore and he's using an opportunity not to talk about him. I don't know. I don't know, but we'll have to see when he gets onto the practice field with pads on. I think that's where the offensive line talk is as of right now.
One thing is still for sure, JT. I still need Bill Callahan reading Walt Whitman poetry and ASMR videos for me to fall asleep to. I could listen to that man talk about anything. He's got such a tranquil voice.
I feel like there's enough audio clips out there. Can't you like take all the audio and put it through an AI to like read like make his voice? Isn't that a program out there now? I feel like that's I feel like it's doable.
I could just put together all the media scrum clips and just put it up on YouTube as Bill Callahan talking for an hour to fall asleep to. That's what I did with Jack Gibbons highlights. That's up on the Sobros Network YouTube channel.
Hey,
I just slowed the plays down, played them in slow motion, and put license-free classical music over the top of it. There you go.
I think that is your next video idea. Bill Callahan quotes ASMR to fall asleep to or study to.
Yes.
So as Eddie says, it was definitely an old man yells at clouds moment. But I think if we read between the tea leaves, does he actually hate Dan Moore Jr.? We'll have to find out.
A lot of people do.
That is true. But outside of them, I think that kind of wraps up the main discussion on minicamp. We'll see how things progress. Yeah, Eddie says Grandpa got on a diatribe and forgot what the question was. That's exactly what happened. It was funny to watch. But let's talk about what you guys requested from me. I asked all of you, who did you want to really wanted me to focus on in the last day of practice? And we got a couple of requests here, some really good ones. First of all, Jake Robertson at Glory Day Sports wanted some more information on the Harrises, Marcus and Jamari. I said earlier that, yeah, Marcus Harris is continuing to get a lot of runs with a lot of the veterans on this team. He's being deployed out there. And I won't say specifically, I'm not counting snaps, but to your point earlier, Stoney, on Marcus Harris, he is being deployed all over the field. And I'll just leave it at that, because I don't know if I can say any more about that without getting in trouble, but he is getting deployed all over the field and with groups that maybe you wouldn't think a 6th-round rookie should be with. I'll leave it at that. But I think they really do like Marcus Harris. Certainly seems like a guy who, between the ears fits well into a Jannard Wilson scheme. Now we'll have to see how that translates on the field with pads and the physicality, of course. But I think, didn't make a lot of like head turning plays, but played really solid this week, I think, for sure. Yeah, sorry. Jake Robertson. Yeah, sorry. He's playing defensive tackle for this team now. So deployed all over the field as defensive tackle. He's also taking some kicks and things like that. So yeah. Jamari Harris, though, the one play, he made a great pass breakup on one that was intended for James Prochet. It was one of those where Cam rolls out, tries to sidearm it, and Jamari Harris makes a really good play. Did not see a lot of him out there, to be honest, but like out of the UDFAs, like Marcus Harris and then the UDFAs, I would say the two Harrises are in the driver's seat. Davian Ross made an interception that was nice. I would have expected maybe a little bit more from guys like Jalen Kimber out there, but haven't seen a lot of him. Gabe Judy Lally as well. Didn't see a lot from him. About him. And then Clarence Lewis is just a name to me, to be honest. Like Clarence Lewis is out there. So
I was curious. I wanted to ask you about Jalen Kimber, if you can talk about him, because I've seen a bunch of tweets that mention like guys making plays and he's on the field. And I don't remember the exact tweet, but I remember thinking like, Jalen Kimber's on the field when like the starters are like, are they high on him, or is this just a
I wouldn't say door? I think it's a lot more. It's different than Marcus Harris. I would say I think there is still a lot of mixing and matching with a lot of these guys. But it's different with Marcus Harris is what I can really say out there. It's more consistent with Marcus Harris, I should say. Those are the two guys, I think, Harris and Harris, the ones that we've talked about and kind of hyped up as this, the guys who would have the best chance out of the UDFA and late round pick guys to make the team. Those are the two guys who we've been talking about. Those are the two guys who have showed up so far. And so I think that's where those guys stand. We'll have to see when the pads come on. Zach Lyons of Cover 2 with Blaine and Zach said, returners hardly getting anything on them. I would say that right now, the guys who are getting a lot of reps are Chimere Dike, Xavier Estrepo, Jaquan Jackson, TJ Sheffield. Those type of guys are getting a lot of the mix. And if you had to ask me right now, my gut feeling, and this is just based on talking with a lot of the guys and within and around the beat and talking to fellow reporters, it feels like, I think my gut feeling is Chimere Dike is going to be this team's punt returner. I think they want him to be their punt returner or on kickoff. That's the way he can contribute. But I do think Xavier Restrepo is still in play, and he was not Xavier Restrepo, but the special teams coordinator, John Bones Fossil, was asked about Xavier Restrepo and what he could bring on that side of the ball, because we've talked about, right? He's a little slower. How does that translate to special teams? And obviously, we've heard from Xavier Restrepo's side that he will do anything and everything that this team needs for them. So here's what Bones Fossil had to say about Xavier Restrepo and his usage potentially on special teams.
Yeah, and that's a great question. And what I've learned is, if a guy's kind of pigeonholed as not the biggest guy or not the fastest guy, he usually has a lot of versatility. So without having maybe a predominant trait, but you got a lot of other good things, I think that's where some of the strengths lie in a lot of special teams guys, is their versatility. And I think this college tape proved that he can return the ball, but he can also block in the return game. And then, finding a spot for him on the cover game, there's always a spot for guys that are tweeners, I guess you could say, whether it's a gunner or a wing on punt or really anywhere on kickoff. So I find a ton of value in versatile guys. And sometimes when guys are super fast, they're really just one thing, and that's fine. Or they're really big and strong, they're just one thing. But the guys that are the tweeners, like a lot of times safeties are, they're not the biggest guy, but they're not the fastest guy. But man, they are so good because you can kind of match them up against both. And I think that's where Restrepo kind of fits, is that versatile piece that you got to be creative with to get him on the field.
So it definitely seems like John Bone Fossil really enjoys these versatile type of guys. And I think that is a point in the right direction for Xavier Restrepo, right? Making the most of his opportunities once the pads come on, but that versatility, maybe not being the fastest or the strongest guy, may find him a spot on special teams. Now, will that translate to Xavier Restrepo actually playing wide receiver snaps for this team in an NFL game? I'm not so sure. That still is yet to be seen. In my opinion, certainly had a hot start to mandatory minicamp, but cooled off afterwards on Wednesday and Thursday. But yeah, I think there is opportunity for him. And if he takes the advantage of it and makes the most of it, I think you absolutely could see the Titans maybe looking at that wide receiver 6 and wide receiver 7 and say, hey, we can use Bryce Oliver as versatility on the wide receiver, but also as our main gunner. And then Xavier Restrepo is kind of this versatile piece that we can plug in anywhere on special teams.
I mean, listen, JT, who am I to question? Who am I to question the great Bones Fossil? Let Fossil bone.
Yes,
I say.
Exactly.
He's so undersized for some of these roles on special teams, where like you want like wide receivers. Like look how good Nick Westbrook-Akine was in that role for so many years for the Titans. You're talking about Bryce Oliver. You're talking about positions that linebackers play sometimes, corners play. I just don't see the size aspect of it. What I would be for on special teams is maybe Restrepo getting a shot at the kickoff return, because talking about that in terms of like the vision, and it's not necessarily about the quick twitch, the ability to change direction, navigate traffic, all that. It's important, but when you're returning a kickoff, having the vision, which is something that I think shows up on Restrepo's tape, is the vision to find the spacing between the zones and all that stuff. I think that's probably his ticket, is that maybe in a reserve role he could get an opportunity to do that. I'm just a nobody with a microphone. I can't fathom the idea of sending Xavier Restrepo down the field as a gunner and asking him to make tackles on like running backs and wide receivers that are returning at the NFL level.
Yeah, I think that's a fair other side of the coin, definitely. Other guys that we had requests for, Kalel Mullings, of all guys. An update on him. We hadn't seen a lot of him because he was still recovering from that injury in the offseason work he had done. But here's a clip on Randy Jordan talking about the 6th round pick from Michigan and some pretty high praise for what he brings in the meeting rooms and his unique background.
I mean, one of the things that I had to get used to is the fact that he sees it through a different lens. I mean, like, you know, he played linebacker for all those years, and then for a year and a half, they move him over to offense. So he can tell you, hey, coach, Mike linebacker ain't fitting it right. Whoa, we talking about offense now, you know, but that helps, you know, in the sense of protection, knowing where the ball is supposed to fit, you know, where the defense is supposed to align. So he's been great in the classroom, but we just got to get him healthy and get him ready to play for us when we come back.
I think it is a unique way, and I asked him as well, like, what exactly would you define that third running back role as, which he kind of doubled down on the idea that they are really in need of a thumper linebacker who's going to get the dirty 2 to 3 yards. And
Yeah,
I think with Kalel Molling's unique background with being a converted linebacker and that vision and the way he conducts himself in the classroom, I think he has as good of a chance as a guy like Julius Chestnut or anybody else to be this team's third down and third running back on the team.
yeah. I mean, I think the athleticism, the testing, it all lines up. I mean, to me, as soon as this drafting occurred, I thought, count your days, Julius Chestnut, because they do similar things, but Kalel Mollings, I think he's just a hammer, man. And I mean, the source of the joke, Friday night, that beer hit my hands like Kalel Mollings, that exists for a reason. And I think he can be that guy in this Titans offense pretty easily as soon as he gets healthy.
Yeah, so we'll have to see him in training camp as he battles for that third running back spot. And then finally, of all places, people wanted to know how's the kicker going, Joey Sly.
Okay.
With and that was Xander Mercury saying we've heard almost nothing. All I can say is that, yeah, he's been the kicker until they like add somebody else or cut him. Like it's going to be Joey Sly. Now, I will say, like, he can hit from distance. We talked to Bones Fossil about, you know, Joey Sly having that power to hit 60-ish yard field goals, which he really enjoys from his time in Dallas with Brendan Aubrey, Greg Zuerlein, Janikowski, those type of guys who he's worked with before, right? So, like, it seems like he does fit what Fossil wants to do with special teams. He hasn't, you know, been perfect by any means, but, like, he is the kicker, and he's going to be the kicker until he's not. Like, who knows? Like, maybe in training camp, like, things will go poorly for him and we'll see a new kicker. I know Nick Folk's out there, but I don't foresee him wanting to come back for a part 3 on the Tennessee Titans train here with everything that he's had to go through. Maybe looking to be a mid-season addition for a team in need of a kicker that has playoff aspirations. But I think Joey Sly is, as of right now, he's in the driver's seat because there is nobody else in the car, let's say.
Okay. Yeah. So
I think that's the best way to say
it. I hope he's driving if he's the only one in the car. Well, I'm certainly not breaking down kicker tape, JT.
Yeah,
so
no.
I can't weigh in on the Joey Sly eval.
Yeah, and Team Ramrod says it's not too late to trade for Willie Lampkin and make him the third down back. So,
hey, I'm here for that, Team Ramrod. I am here for that.
Yeah, and Derek says, "What are we doing?" Which means I think we've run out of things to talk about mandatory minicamp.
That's our cue.
And I think that's where we'll call it today. I'm not saying I wanted to talk about kickers. We got multiple people asking how are the kickers, and there's nothing else I can say but fine. Like there's no competition this year, so
gotta
not
give
much
the people what they want.
Derek's saying, "Oh no, he just got here." Well, if you want to go back and listen, we had a great discussion about Cam, the wide receivers, and everything else. So it was a good episode, I would say. In the last episode, where we have fresh new content to talk about before we enter the 5 weeks of darkness. What we will do, I'm not sure. I think we'll probably have a couple of Team Ramrod saying Derek was walking the streets looking for Zach Lyons with a club. which I think is a fair excuse not to be here
Yeah.
for an episode of the Hot Read Podcast. I do think we'll have some guests on in the next couple of weeks talking about Cam, some quarterback coach talk, as well as some other outside perspectives that we haven't heard yet. So Eddie's saying, what's Tajay up to? As much as Tony is, it's hard to really gauge running backs when there's no pads and you're not going full speed, but he looks great. And there's been really good high praise for him, I would say. And so other than that, I think that's going to do it for us today. Team Ramrod saying, great job covering all the offseason, boys. We appreciate you guys being here with us to cover the offseason. We do this not because we want to sit here, but because we like to sit here and talk Titans with you and really want to have you guys in on the conversation. And so we've been really, I think, thankful and grateful that you guys have stuck around throughout the entire offseason. And we'll see what we'll be here making content for the rest of the foreseeable future until we get back to training camp, and stick with us, because I'm sure we'll get into some more, we'll get into some more stoogery and things like that along the way. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you to ML Rose and Sinkers Beverages for sponsoring the show. And until next week, this has been the Hot Read Podcast. We'll talk to you then.